Welcome in to another episode of the My Two Bits Gators Football Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ben, joined as always by your other host, Mr. Randy. Randy, it continues to be hectic. How we doing? How's Gainesville? What's the pulse?
Man, it is hectic. Some head scratching going on, some anticipation going on. It's Christmas week. Can't believe it's Christmas week.
Yeah,
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
same to
Happy
you.
Hanukkah to all you out there.
Yes,
I'm
same
telling
to
you,
everybody
man,
out there. Yeah,
I can't believe another year is pretty much in the books.
yeah, it's pretty wild. Last few months really flew by. Feel like the season just started, and now we're very much done with it.
Gone.
And
Just
Christmas
gone.
is here. So there you go. It's pretty wild. Pretty wild. I'm with you there. Yeah, so here we go. So this evening, we are going to talk about an in-depth review of the new coaches. And man, we got a bunch that we had to add to this yesterday.
Heyo.
um, and all the new staffing hires for this particular pod. So as always, we'll start things off with our intro. We'll do our mission, our accuracy disclaimer, our vision, and our agenda, and walk through what we're going to talk about with each one of these, give you a breakdown here, break everything down, look at it, kind of give our evaluation, and go from there. So, mission is always to provide factual analysis of all things Florida Gator football. Our accuracy disclaimer is that our information will be accurate to the best of our possible ability. We'll cite our sources whenever we use them, and all statistical data comes from either ESPN or stats.ncaa.org, and recruiting data comes from on3.com. Our vision is to have unfiltered conversation around the product on the field, as well as recruiting and overall coaching decisions. Our analysis will be based on review of film, and while we will express opinion, that opinion should always be based in some form of fact. We will also evaluate strategy and tactics and discuss our observation of player personnel decisions. All right. So with that, our agenda for this evening is to look at each of the coaches, including Sumrall himself, give a breakdown of where they came from, coaching tree if it applies, and what traits they are bringing, and how will they help Florida in their new tenure here. So that is what we'll look at for each coach. We're going to go back and forth, kind of alternate, and then give some of our thoughts from each of us on some of the various ones here, obviously the bigger names. And we'll break this down for each of the position coaches that have been named, with the exception of running back coach, because that one hasn't officially been named yet, though we are hearing that potentially that could be Mr. Chris Foster out of Duke, based on a report that just came out from On3. I don't know if that's fully, we'll say, confirmed yet. Some of these technically aren't fully confirmed that we're going to list here, but it looks like they're pretty much decided. We tried to only pick ones that have either been officially announced or actually hired. I wouldn't say that one's quite at that stage yet, and because it just came out, we have not included him yet. So we'll hold off there. And then finally, to conclude this, we will give you thoughts on how we think the staff is shaping up overall, kind of give a big picture thought here to close things out before we wrap up and talk about the next pod. And that is that. So with that, we will get things started with the new big boss in town, Mr. Jon Sumrall. Take it away, Randy.
Yeah, man. So I'll start it off by this. Why get one lane when you can have two lane? I know. Had to say it. Had to say it, right? Um, I'm going to start off with a couple of things here on Coach Summerall real quick. A couple of quotes. I believe in building a team rooted in toughness, accountability, and relentless competitive spirit. Florida has everything necessary to compete at the highest level: the resources, the support, the tradition, and the passion of Gator Nation. My family and I are excited to get to work. One of my first priorities will be to assemble an incredible staff, including an offensive coordinator who understands that at Florida, having an explosive offense isn't optional, it's mandatory.
Yep.
Mm.
A good
You
quote.
said it, coach.
Yeah. He
You
said a
said
lot of
it.
things. He said a lot of high bars in his opening statements and presser and all that.
Very high. Exactly. So, folks, here at the end of the day, here's the deal with Sumrall. Where did he come from? Kentucky, the bluegrass state, right? Came out of there as a linebacker. Um, Basically, his playing career was over, unfortunately, due to a medical issue. He had to medically retire because of a spinal condition, right? Led the team in tackles in 2004. Grad assistant, okay, served under Ron Krager, did that for a while under him, went to San Diego under him. Then after that, came to Tulane for a few years, then Troy, assistant coach, special teams coordinator, went to Ole Miss, linebackers coach, thought he was going to get the head coaching job at Troy, went on after there, and then after he was not promoted, did get the job at Troy in 2021. After his first season, went 12 and 2, then 11 and 2, back to back Sun Belt Conference champions at the or championship appearance. Right, Sumrall has that, which a lot of people did cringe about as far as well, Sun Belt Billy. A lot of it's coming the same. But here's the thing: his philosophy is centered around developing players, character, work ethic, toughness, discipline, all that good stuff. He's got key aspects of his philosophy. Okay, don't take the cheese, don't eat the rat poison. If that sounds familiar, well, guess what? That comes from Nick Saban, right? Which teaches the principle of players to ignore the hype and all the external praise that could lead to any type of complacency. Okay, the focus remains on consistent daily performance in your job at hand. So at the end of the day, Coach Summerall comes from a defensive minded set. The traits that he brings: blue collar, work ethic, tough minded, and not to mention the SEC exposure and that experience. Okay, being back there in Kentucky and then coming back later on. How does he help Florida? That's probably the biggest question that, we're going to see if he can answer. But the intensity is there, the passion is there, the purpose is there, and he definitely lit a fire with his opening press conference. Um, the other thing too that's interesting about Summerall, I know a lot of people did not like it, is the fact that he continued to coach Tulane through their CFP run, not a long run, but a run nonetheless. And also try to maintain those relationships and build on those relationships here at Florida. Very tough to do, very tough balancing act. Regardless of whether a lot of people liked it, hate it, whatever the case might be, he did it to the best of his ability, and he tried to maintain, especially connecting with current players here. I believe, given his background, given the toughness, given the SEC exposure, he is going to do a lot of great things here at Florida. There's a lot he's got to prove, but hopefully he understands. I mean, when you take a job like this, you understand the scrutiny that you're going to be under, and he should especially understand it in such a way because of what just transpired over the past 4 years.
Yeah.
So either way, that's my take on Summerall. Feel free and add anything you'd like, B.
Yeah, sure. So I think maybe a note got crossed there just from your recap on the history. I didn't hear you mention the time at Kentucky as co-DC and linebackers coach. I think maybe that one got lost in the shuffle somewhere on that, so I did want to call that out.
Please do, yes.
Yep. So just wanted to throw that one in there before the time going back to Troy and getting the head coaching gig. So that one obviously being a big part of where he got some SEC, exposure and time, which I do think is important, right? Has, sometime not as a head coach, obviously, but does have some exposure for that. So I think that's important. And I think the other thing that's important too is, now listen, maybe this had to do with, some things that he was told to say or that he was supposed to say, but that press conference couldn't have differed more from Billy Napier than, I don't know, white differs from black. They're polar opposites, right? I mean, there was nothing about wait and see. There was nothing about it's a process. There was nothing about give me 6 years, right? I know Napier didn't say that, but that's the implication, right? So there was nothing about it's going to take time and he's going to build it. No, he said, I want to win right now. I hate losing. I don't put up with that. I don't tolerate that, right? He told his players after the game at Tulane even. So I don't think it's just about that it's never okay to lose, right? He's never going to accept it. He's never going to be okay with it. And I think that mindset is going to be really important here moving forward because we're not going to accept it either. We're not going to take, that kind of attitude Now, listen, is there still going to be some losing that happens? Yeah, I think it's going to occur to a degree, especially as you're kind of getting through the learning curve and the early on here. That doesn't mean I'm excusing it. It doesn't make it okay, right? It doesn't make it all right. I think it's just you have to expect it to a degree very early on. Now, listen, maybe it doesn't happen. I hope it doesn't, but I think very early on, it's likely that there's going to be a little bit of growing pain right out the gate. But I don't know. This staff that he's put together does give me some hope. And we'll see how he leverages the portal for some of the players that we have lost, and maybe we can put something together here. Holding that recruiting class was pretty cool. So we'll see what happens. So I think my thoughts are that his mindset, at least from the things that he has expressed, and some of the things that I've seen from press conferences that were pulled after we hired him, that were from before we hired him, right? So this is stuff that was not in any way scripted or planned or whatever, right? Some of that stuff was kind of like, okay, I like this attitude, right? There were things that he said and kind of did and showed that were good. And the last thing I'll say about this that I really do like is if you go and look, right, and you go back and you kind of look at Billy and his offenses and where they ranked out on things, because he was an offensive guy, his offenses never really ranked that highly. Even when he was at Louisiana, even when he was doing his Sun Belt thing and being Sun Belt Billy, his offenses were still never really that great, right? And we know he was never that great of an offensive coordinator. That never worked out at Clemson, right? It's too predictable, right? We gave you that quote a while back, right, for why he got fired there. He didn't get the play calling job as an offensive coordinator at Alabama, right? We talked about that a little bit when I went to Sark when Kiffin left at Alabama, right? So it never really worked for Billy to do that. Ironically, now he's not going to be the OC at James Madison, at least in theory. We'll see if that actually happens. I have my doubts, but we'll move on. That's not our problem anymore. But Sumrall's that's not the case. His defenses have delivered in the teams that he's been on. Not as much this year. They didn't rank as well. But if you look at the rankings for the stuff that he's done previously, last year, a couple of years he was at Troy, he has delivered. Right? So that's the difference in what I would say is the thing he's supposed to be good at, he's actually good at it. Whereas Napier was not. And yet continued to do it. So, and yet in this situation, Summerall's not continuing to do it, right? He hired a DC. Now, how much will the DC actually be calling plays? Well, he'll probably call plays, but how much will it actually be his plays? We'll talk more about that later. But I don't want to get too much deeper in the weeds with it. But the thought that I have on him is that I don't think he's Billy Napier is where I'm trying to go with this. I really don't. The more that I've learned about him, the more that I've thought about him, despite their records being similar, despite the fact that they come from Group of 5 schools, they are not the same guy. They are just not the same guy. And I think maybe that's the biggest point that I want to make in all of this. They have very different attitudes. They have very different processes, right? Talk a lot about that with Billy. And I think we're going to see a very different product because of that. And the other reason I think we're going to see a different product is because of the OC that he has hired in Buster Faulkner. So I'll transition right into the first coordinator review here. And we'll talk a little about our new OC, Buster Faulkner. And I think it's very easy to say that this is possibly the most important hire that Sumrall made. And I feel it is a very good one. So we'll start off with coaches of note that Buster has worked with. Of course, Kirby Smart and Todd Monken. Todd Monken is currently a coordinator in the NFL, so he's probably pretty good at what he does. And we all know Kirby is Kirby. But digging deeper, we can also see that he continued on many of the air raid principles originally established at Valdosta State when he was the OC there by one Mike Leach, RIP. And Mike Leach was basically the founder of the air raid, one of the original founders of this. So when he was first an offensive coordinator, he continued to run a lot of similar concepts from the original air raid that Mike Leach put in place there in the late 90s at Valdosta State. So he has 14 years of experience as an OC, more than that as a positional coach and things of that nature. But Buster has a lot of experience as an OC, and he was just named OC of the year by the group Football Scoop, and was a semifinalist for the Broyles Award, which goes to the best assistant coach in the country. So pretty impressive resume. to say the least. I think by far the most impressive resume of any of the coaches that have been hired. Um, this is a heck of a get. It really is. And to break this down further and talk about what he brings to UF, I watched some film on his offenses, and he showed us a lot of different things over the years. But the biggest takeaway that I have from watching his stuff is that he is multiple. He will use all kinds of different formations and personnel groupings ranging from 10. Yes, I said 10. That's four true wide receivers on the field. He'll use 11, 12, 20, 21, and even 22. I will explain this briefly. The first number is the number of running backs. The second number is the number of tight ends. What you have left over is how many receivers you can have on the field, right? So if you have one running back and no tight ends, you have four wide receivers. If you have one running back and one tight end, you have three wide receivers, and so on and so on and so on, right? So these are all these different packages of personnel that he will run. But perhaps even more importantly is he doesn't just varying the personnel, he leverages them when you watch the film. He leverages these different personnel packages. He uses motion that actually makes sense and does something in the play, not just pre-snap eye candy that means nothing post-snap. Thank you. So if you have seen the things about him getting the most out of what he has to work with on the roster, there's been a lot of articles written about that. I would tell you that the film that I saw absolutely does back that up. So that, without a doubt, is the most important thing that he is going to bring, or what traits does he have? I guess I should say. So what is it that he's going to bring to Florida? What does he have coming to UF, and how is that going to help us? Right? How's he going to help UF? I would say the answer is a lot. The ability to be dynamic on offense, right? What have we talked about for 4 years? Vanilla, right? I don't think that's happening. I don't think vanilla is going to be in the vocab. I really don't. I think you're going to get some nice blends, some different varieties, some different flavors. We're gonna head down to Ben and Jerry's and take out the sample spoon and get to see a lot of different things, right?
Oh boy.
I really do. I really think you're going to see that, because when you have the ability to be dynamic on offense and when you have talent, and even though I know we've lost some players here, make no mistake, we still have talent, and I expect to get more talent through the portal as well. And we have talent coming in as freshmen in this recruiting class, right? This means you have some serious potential to have a fun offense to watch on that side of the ball come next season. Obviously, we have a lot more to break down here once we get actual film, right? And see what it actually looks like and what things we're actually doing. Also have to see what quarterback we're going to be playing. But for now, I am very encouraged by this hire. And I think this could be a huge piece towards the team's improvement next year. Really, really high on this. Not sure there's another one I'm higher on as far as the potential and the opportunity here. Obviously very pie in the sky for it, but I think there's good reason to be based on everything I've seen on film. So what thoughts you got on Buster?
Very refreshing to know that this coming fall of 26, we won't be just having great value, uh, frozen over, freezer burnt vanilla. That's good. I think the main thing with someone like this of this caliber, uh, is a breath of fresh air,
Yeah,
right? So breath of fresh air is the main thing. The second thing is there's a reason why the Ravens hired Todd Monken and took him
right.
from Georgia and wanted to pair him with Lamar Jackson. Obviously, it hasn't gone the way that the Ravens thought it would, and Lamar's been hurt. But regardless of the facts, what Todd Monken did for Stetson Bennett, the most famous Brillo plaid, I think, in college football history, with that mop of hair, um, two chips, two chips in those seasons, and a very functioning offense. Had a lot of weapons, but it was very efficient. And so for me, when I look at what Faulkner brings in the resume, it's a efficient offense. It's a fully functioning offense. More so, it's extremely competent. And I like what you said earlier about the movement, because there is movement. There is not just the eye candy, the window dressing, whatever you want to call it, but it's purposeful movement. Each movement, there's timing to it, there's rhythm to it, hence the purpose. And so that's why I think, and I don't know about you, B, but the last time I remember, again, this is after the Meyer and Mullen era, after all that, the last time I remember there was a certain buzz, and it's going to sound strange, certain buzz around an OC at Florida. I thought it was going to be Charlie Weiss. That did not go the way we thought it would, obviously.
No, that did not.
Right? But it's the ingenuity, and especially when you talk about air raid, disciple of Mike Leach, RIP Mike Leach, of course. Those are the things that we just haven't had the pleasure of seeing on Saturdays. And it's
Yeah.
been just a drab, It's one thing to put up 55 against LIU, but when the rest of your games throughout the rest of the year, you're struggling to score 21, I mean, this is not opinion, it's just fact. What we saw on the field didn't pass the eye test, and it was extremely frustrating. So that is what it is. So I think the biggest thing, I think you hit the nail on the head. Probably the most important hire or most crucial hire to this coaching staff for the coming seasons.
Yeah, and by everything on the eye test and on paper, right? Eye test previous, right? Not we don't know going forward yet, but
Yeah.
previous eye test and on paper, he nailed it. I mean, knocked it out the park. I mean, I don't know that there was really much of a better hire to be had unless you somehow stole like Charlie Weiss Jr. from Lane Kiffin,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
in
Uh,
theory, maybe that would be better, but good luck with that. So there is that. And by the way, you mentioned Monken going to the Ravens. The last 2 years prior to this year went pretty well because Lamar got the MVP and then runner up the year after that. So he'd been doing just fine, right? And revitalized Derrick Henry's career, of course, last season and doing okay this year too. I think the offense in Baltimore is still in pretty good shape. So to your point, Monken's doing
fair.
okay in the NFL. So
Very fair.
all
All
right,
right.
moving along. Let's talk some defense.
Let's talk defense. Brad White, folks. Brad White. Brad White? Brad White? Which Brad White? Well,
B-Rad.
this Brad White, our new DC. Get this, finance major, master's in accounting. He
Wow.
just he didn't want to be a CPA though. Didn't want to do that. Get this, folks. Turned down an offer to play college football at Yale to walk on at Georgia.
Mhm.
Huh? Okay, at Yale. Smart. Okay, fair. Didn't play, right? Jim Donna was fired, replaced by Mark Richt. That was the beginning of the Mark Richt era. Transferred to Wake Forest, right? Where former Georgia assistant Brad Lambert was their linebacker coach. Another linebacker. In White's first season at Wake Forest, led the team in total tackles. Does that sound familiar? Like another coach who's our head coach? Uh,
Mhm.
94 tackles, including 24 against Navy in a single game, the most by a Wake Forest player in that era. Wow, bananas. So, finished his college career, wasn't sure what he was going to do. He had his degree, worked at Bank of America as a portfolio management analyst for a couple years. Then he got an invite to come back to his alma mater, Wake Forest, as a grad assistant. Safeties coach at Murray State in '09. Spent a season there before going on to coach inside linebackers at Air Force under former Wake Forest offensive coordinator Troy Calhoun. Then, after that, had an opportunity to leap to the NFL. Yes, folks, the NFL. Joined the Colts in 2012 as a defensive quality control coach. Worked his way up to outside linebackers coach. He spent a total of 6 seasons with the Colts. Then, after that, named the outside linebackers coach at Kentucky in 2018. And after that, continued on his way and later got promoted to defensive co-defensive coordinator to defensive coordinator at Kentucky. So as we know, Mark Stoops spent a lot of time in Kentucky, 12 seasons, hard to believe. And as we know, Coach Sumrall referenced Bob Stoops in his opening press conference, right? Have a defense like that, still put up a lot of points. There you go. Couple things about White. Defense tree, right there. Sumrall, there. Co-defensive coordinator, linebackers coach. You've got Stoops in the defensive background there. Interesting that when I look at the Kentucky defense, okay, it's Kentucky. Yes, it is SEC, tough competition, but it's Kentucky. Not exactly the cream of the crop goes to Kentucky, despite the bluegrass. So, a couple things to look is the fact that they've done some very solid things as an overall defense. Okay. Physicality, aggression, right? Known for a more violent, aggressive style of defense. Okay. Aiming to impose their will on various offenses. Okay. Fundamental focus, emphasizing strong tackling, sound football fundamentals, consistent positioning over complex, exotic schemes, consistent positioning. Okay. He's got some adaptability, playing a 3-4. Okay. Often operating from that 3-4 base, but adjusting to opponent strengths with strong linebacker play being extremely crucial. Again, Summerall was a linebacker, White was a linebacker. Okay. So a lot of what they're going to bring is a lot of that tough, I mean, just tough, gritty football. Here's the other thing that's interesting about White as the DC at Kentucky. Consistently punched above their weight, meaning consistently fielded top SEC defenses, often exceeding the talent level of the roster, according to On3. So very good. So here's some metrics. 7 consecutive top 45 FBS defenses from 2018 to 2024. Okay. 4 top 25 defenses, 18, 19, 21, 22. Top 10 national ranking in yards allowed, 2022. Strong NFL draft production for defensive players. How does this help Florida? This continues because, again, complementary football, but this continues the string of very good defenses we've had over the years, dating back to Ron Roberts and Double A. It's going to continue that, but I think more so it's going to help solidify this defense and give this defense at Florida more of an identity. That's going to be very important. We've got the Mark Stoops effect, of course, Summerall and everything else that he's done to influence Brad in a lot of different ways. But at the end of the day, extremely, I agree with you, B. Buster Faulkner, probably the most important hire. And this year at DC, probably the second most important hire. And so he's got a big set of shoes to fill. And it's going to be very interesting to see what he does with this defense because there's going to be a lot of talent there. And I think you had a comment to make regarding the talent composite and what that looks like with Florida versus what he had to work with at Kentucky.
Yeah, so I do think that the talent composite piece being better obviously potentially elevates that. But I think the other piece that we want to look at here is obviously Summerall being a defensive minded coach, right? He's going to have his hands in this, right? I don't think there's any doubt that he's not going to just say, hey, Brad, go do what you want with the defense, right? That's not happening, right? Just like Mullen, when he was head coach, didn't just say to whoever his OC was, I don't even remember who that figurehead person was, go do whatever you want with the offense, right? He was involved with it, right? He was calling plays, right? I'm not saying Summerall's going to call the plays. I don't think he will. I think Brad White will call the plays, but you better believe schematically, week to week, architecturally, right, of what's going on with this defense, Summerall will be involved, right? He will be. There's no doubt that is going to happen. I am sure of it. And that matters because the problem with Kentucky is if you look at their defenses, they were very much predictable, I would say, from week to week. Not a lot of variance, right? They kind of said, hey, this is what we're going to play. We're going to execute it well, but this is what we're going to play, right? Kind of similar to some things we talked about with Ron Roberts. Not a lot of variance there. They did what they did pretty well most of the time, except when they didn't. But but for the most part, they did pretty well. But if you kind of read the book on them and said, hey, this is what they're going to do. If we do this, we can beat this because they're not going to change, right? That was the problem with Kentucky. I don't think you're going to see that. with what we're going to see with Florida. I'd be very surprised because Summerall definitely did not show those tendencies at Tulane. A lot of variability, a lot of difference in scheme, a lot of changes that you saw if you look at the film on that. And my impression and interpretation there is that that's something that you're going to see as a part of this for Florida. I think Brad White's going to be in charge of getting the players to execute, right? I think you may have mentioned some PFF stats previously as far as rankings go on that, but if not, his PFF numbers throughout the time that he's been there as the DC have been excellent. Again, versus what we look at with talent, but really just in general, pretty decent in terms of the rankings. In some years, very, very good. And what I would say that shows is that he has the ability to get the most out of the players. And if your talent goes up and you still get the most out of your players, and you have a good defensive mind as a head coach helping you scheme things up, that is the recipe to be a pretty good defense. Maybe a very good defense. And that's where my hope lies in terms of this. So I think when we look at the combination of the potential for a very good offense, the potential for a very good defense here, right? When we start looking at things, I think you've got a really, really high bar that you're potentially setting with this stuff. Now we just have to make sure the talent stuff comes together. These guys, find a way to coalesce as a coaching staff, right? Because sometimes chemistry is a thing for these things, and we got to put all that together. But organizationally, that stuff falls into place, and this looks pretty good. So when we look at those top three pieces here of the structure of the organization, a lot of check marks, So good things is what I would say. I really don't have a whole lot of complaints. Again, if I thought Brad White was just here to kind of run Kentucky's defense, I'd have concerns, but I don't think that's what's happening. So yeah, again, time will tell. We don't know, right? If I'm wrong about that, we got a problem. But I don't think that's the case. So we'll see what happens. But all right, moving along. Next up on the list is wide receiver coach Marcus Davis coming to us from Auburn. And this is another one that I feel pretty good about. Less experience here. Only 5 years as a wide receiver coach, and only 3 in the SEC. But does have 3 years as a grad assistant at P4 schools prior to that. He's worked, of course, with Hugh Freeze and Gus Malzahn as well in terms of his coaching tree experience. But the reason that I'm high on this hire is this guy can recruit, if you're not aware. Brought multiple 4-stars, and a 5-star in Cam Coleman to Auburn last year with no established quarterback whatsoever. I'm not even sure they knew who their quarterback was at that point. Maybe they did, but if not, you were getting Jackson Arnold, who did not exactly show a propensity to throw the ball well at Oklahoma. So not easy to do, right? Not easy to say, hey, not sure who the quarterback's going to be, or hey, it's this guy who threw pretty bad last year. Why don't you come on down? And got them all to come there. It's pretty incredible stuff. That is not easy. And for those that saw Auburn's offense this season, it's easy to see why most of those guys are now in the portal. But again, I have to stress, he got them to come there. So really, really important, and that has to be recognized. He's also coached a couple of all-conference performers when he was at both Hawaii and Georgia Southern. So these are the traits that I think he's really going to bring with him. What can he do to help Florida? I hope he can help us recruit. That would definitely be where I would put his strength at currently. From a coaching standpoint, for my money, high bar to match Billy G. Billy G is an excellent talent developer. He's proven that over the years. But this guy's young, and he has experience playing the position. So I'll give him, as I will most of the coaches, or all the coaches on the staff, not most, excuse me, you got the opportunity to show me. So show me. So that's my thoughts on Marcus Davis.
Fantastic. Very good overall. Nice and quick and efficient and easy. And here we go. So we're going to go from wide receivers to, let's go to DBs. I've got Brandon Harris coming to you. Might be a head scratcher for most. So a little bit of background on Mr. Harris. Coach Harris attended Booker T. Washington High School, a powerhouse down there in Miami. As a senior, he was the Florida Gatorade Player of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
after 49 tackles, 5 sacks, 4 interceptions, 2 touchdowns as a cornerback, 26 receptions, 501 yards, 8 touchdowns as a wide receiver. Wonderful. Selected by the Houston Texans in the second round of the 2011 draft, played for the Tennessee Titans, then headed up north for the Toronto Argonauts of the CFL. Okay, so there's that. But before that was a Miami Hurricane.
Moving along.
Crickets. Yeah, exactly. So after that, basically, coaching stint wise, recently he was pursued by Florida State for DB's coach, but ultimately chose Coach Sumrall and the Gators because of wanting to be a part of his vision to return Florida to an elite program. So, from a coaching standpoint, grad assistant, Florida International University, FIU, promoted cornerbacks coach 2021, then Florida Atlantic University, that's not confusing, in 2022, under head coach Tom Herman there. If those of you remember the name Tom Herman, that's because he coached at Texas years ago.
And Ohio State at VOC prior to that, I believe.
And Ohio State. That's it. Correct. Exactly. He got promoted to co-defensive coordinator in 24. FAU's defense recorded 11 receptions and 2 defensive touchdowns. FAU had at least 1 turnover in 8 of its 12 games, ranked among the top 40 teams in red zone defense. The Owls defense held 7 teams to 25 points or fewer in the 2024 season, including against the AAC champions Army. Okay, after Florida Atlantic, went over to UCF. DB's coach, UCF secondary, contributed to a pass defense that ranked 25th in the country, allowing an average of 185.1 yards. Very good. While he was at Miami, Bill Young, John Lovett were the DCs. Randy Shannon, of course, the head coach. So you've got some of that on the coaching tree side. The traits that he brings: blue collar, work ethic, tough minded, ACC, NFL exposure, experience. And it's funny, B, just like you mentioned earlier about Marcus Davis, our new wide receivers coach, with Brandon Harris. Hopefully, he does a good job of going back to the roots at Booker T. Washington and in the Miami area, and does a good job with the recruiting train.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't know you were done.
No, that you're good. That's the thing, right? You can't be a Florida Gatorade Player of the Year and not have a motor and not have some ties back there that other kids would want to follow in the footsteps of. And the last fun fact on him: older brother of, if you remember this name, Treon Harris.
Yeah, sure do. Nice little tie in there.
Yeah, so oddly
So
enough, I was at that game in 2014 when he saved the Gators coming in for Jeff Driscoll after he got injured to beat the Vols 10-9 in the swamp. That was wild.
yeah, for sure. And so for what it's worth, I think both of these ones we just talked about with Davis and Harris here, these are both considered very strong in the up and comer department, right?
Yep.
Both of these are considered to be like hot hires, right? So these are both, like, I would say, coveted guys right now that we have gotten here. So even though there may not be as maybe big a name, certainly as Faulkner, these were on a lot of people's hot lists in terms of position coach hires here, and we got both of them. So I think these are both solid hires here in both the wide receiver and the DB room. So really good gets. Is really what it comes down to. So, all right, moving on. For the other piece of the secondary, your safeties coach is going to be one Mr. Chris Collins. He spent the last 4 seasons working at Kentucky in the same role, so 4 years of SEC experience. And prior to that, 4 years at Georgia State as safeties coach. So that's 8 years experience coaching safeties. I'm going to say that again. That is 8 years of experience coaching safeties. So compared to our last, I think, 3 safeties coaches, that is 8 more years than they had coaching safeties prior to coming to Florida. Because nobody had anything before they came there with our last few safeties coaches, unless you talk about the fact that we had, I think at one point we did have um oh goodness, mine's going blank on the LSU guy, Corey something.
Raymond.
Thank you. Um Raymond was coaching safeties and the DBs, but we all know he's really more of a DBs coach, right? So he was doing both at one point, but it is what it is. So he obviously had more experience because he's been doing it forever. But at the end of the day, as a dedicated safeties coach, we haven't had anybody with experience in that role in quite a while, is what I'm trying to say. So this is a refreshing change. He also has assistant coaching experience that dates back to 2011 season. So he's put 3 players in the NFL from his time at Kentucky, including a first rounder in the 2025 draft in one Max Hairston. Coaching tree of note is only consistent of Sean Elliott, who was a solid head coach for Georgia State, if you don't know the name, but he really was quite good, got them to be a lot better than they previously were. And of course, one of my least favorite head coaches, Mark Stoops. So moving right along. Collins brings solid defensive experience as well as a good amount of experience as an actual safeties coach, as I already mentioned. So I'm very much looking forward to what we can potentially see out of the safety play, because quite frankly, the safety play at Florida hasn't been good in a really long time. I've been really disappointed in it for, I don't even know how many years now. It's just pretty much been bad, whether it's been a talent deficiency, a coaching deficiency, or both. It's really been an issue. So really looking forward to hopefully seeing some improvement there. We got a lot of young talent in that room, which so far has stayed, knock on wood, because the older talent in the room that's left, I'm fine with them leaving, quite frankly, because they have not shown on film that they are very good. So we'll move along. But we'll talk more about transfer portal stuff in our next pod. But looking forward to what we have with Collins, the other thing I like about this is he has comfortability working with Brad White, right? And he wasn't there when Sumrall was there, but he was there obviously with Brad White as the DC, right? So this transitions for him really nicely. He's been a part of the operation working with him before. And I hopefully think that there's a lot of pieces here when you start to look at this, and I'll get into this more when we talk overall thoughts. I think that can help with some of the transition here, right? The transition staff, the first year staff, one of the biggest thing is kind of getting used to working with one another. And to a degree, you're always going to have that when you put a staff together for the first time. But I think a lot of these pieces have some continuity with one another, either recently or in the past. And I think that can really be a helpful piece here. And I think that's one thing I want to tie in here. So those are my thoughts on Mr. Collins.
Fantastic, fantastic. All right, moving on from the safeties, we're going to head to the O-line and talk Mr. Phil Troutwain. So
Yes,
those of
indeed.
you should know that name, very familiar name here in Gaines, Vegas. Of course, attended UF from '04 to '08, started with Ron Zook, finished with Coach Meyer, reserve freshman tackle 2004, played all 12 games, starter in '05. In '06, SEC Fall Academic Honor Roll, second team All SEC Honors. After starting 14 games for the Gators at left tackle, sat out the '07 season with a stress fracture, came back in '08, started all 12 games, left tackle, first team All SEC selection, tackler for the second time in 2 years.
So
And
he only
obviously,
plays on the championship teams, is what you're telling me.
exactly. He's like, you know what? I'm only going to play in '05, and I'm only going to play in or '06, then '08, right? That's it.
I
That's all
heard
I'm
you
gonna
say
play.
he played in '05 too. I'm just kidding, but it's just funny.
Regardless of the fact, exactly. So graduated from Florida, bachelor's degree in '07, master's in '08, double Gator, hoorah. Played for the Browns, Saints, and Chargers. Practice squad member, third string. And then from a coaching perspective, started at Boston College in 2013 to 2015. O-line, graduate assistant Davidson, 2016-17. Special teams coordinator and tight ends coach at BC, coming back in 18 and 19. And then the O-line coach at Penn State, 2020 to 2025, until just a month ago. So, from a coaching tree standpoint, obviously coming from Ron Zook, Urban Meyer, but more importantly, his OL coach, John Hevesy. Very, very influential coach in his development as a lineman. As far as traits, the interesting thing about Troutwain is the main thing he took away from his days at Florida that he's tried to bring at every other school. So Boston College, Davidson, Penn State with him, foot and hand positioning and forcing the defenders to work from a very uncomfortable position. Great, do that. How does he help Florida? Folks, 2 chips in 4 years. Legacy was at the pinnacle of Florida football. You've got Meyer and his style, regardless if people liked it, didn't like it, agreed, disagreed, indifferent. He was there at the prime time of when this program was on top of the mountain for 2 out of that 05 to 11 run. So when you look at that, that's there. All the things that he learned that he's taken with him in his coaching tree throughout the years, all the lessons, all that scar tissue, as I've talked about before. Phil Troutwain is going to be a good one for us. And not to mention, it's neat to see the fact that the offers that he has made at Penn State, we've seen some of those start to pivot, especially some notable 4 and 5 star offensive linemen. So Phil Troutwain is going to be a phenomenal hire. And guess what? We don't need 2 offensive line coaches. We don't. We just need
No.
one very capable, very competent one, and Phil Troutwain will do it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And outstanding recruiter, as you already kind of alluded to, and outstanding talent developer. 10 draft picks in only been coaching offensive line since 2018 as a standalone coach for it, as an actual position coach. So only 7 years of doing it, 10 draft picks, 3 first rounders, a second rounder, and a third rounder amongst those. And some of his lower round picks have actually produced despite being taken in the lower rounds. This guy's off the charts, man. Phenomenal hire. Phenomenal hire. Aside from the Gator ties, which we of course love, just a great hire. I mean, I love this one. This one absolutely might be one of my favorites other than DOC. I absolutely love this hire. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. All right, moving along to a hire that I do not necessarily think is phenomenal.
Are you going tight end?
We start to get into some of the hires from yesterday in the Tulane gang here. Evan McKissick. And for the record, I don't have a problem with hiring some people from Tulane. I'm gonna put that out there. I just question if all of them are as experienced as they need to be to do this. So here we go. And this is one of them, quite frankly. So again, Evan's one of the many ads from Tulane, and he's just one of the ones that I'm questioning a bit at this point in the process because his experience consists of 3 seasons as a grad assistant at Kentucky with 1 on the O-line, or with the O-line, excuse me, as a grad assistant, 1 year at Murray State as a tight end and running back coach, 2 years at Troy as the running back coach, and 2 years at Tulane as the co-OC and O-line coach. So to recap, where was he a tight end coach? 1 year where he was also a running back coach at Murray State. And he's now going to be the tight end coach at an SEC program.
Yep.
I'm sorry, that's unqualified. It just is. You're not qualified to do that. You're just not. So very limited experience, as mentioned here, and none of it's in the Power Four, which is where my concern stems from in general, right? As a coach, none of it's in the Power Four. Yes, he had some time at Kentucky, but it was as a grad assistant. Also, I don't have a lot of insight on recruiting here at a position where we're going to need to recruit. So just a lot of question marks, and I don't think this was the right move here. I don't see it. Maybe I'll be wrong. Everybody gets a shot, right? Everybody gets a shot. So we'll see. Prove me wrong. I'm not talking trash. I'm not trying to call people the carpet. It just, the data does not bear out that this is a great hire from what we're seeing on paper here. So we'll see. Upside, as with all the Tulane hires, continuity of staff. I already mentioned it, right? Helping put an organization in place to run smoothly early on. That helps. This is important. And if these coaches do have what it takes to compete and win on this level, then I am all for them. Make the transition better, make it smoother. But I can't know that yet. And again, from what I see on paper, doesn't look good. So This is the first one where you're going to hear me. It's been I've been a lot of pumping sunshine so far on here, right? It's been sounding really good, been really happy, and that's the truth. That's how I felt about it. I don't feel that way about this one. So there you go. Moving on. Who's next?
Remember, he doesn't hire friends, B.
I
Doesn't hire
mean,
friends.
again, I got to address that real quick. So yes, he said that, and then the very next thing he said was that he's going to make hires that make sense. Well, again,
Yes.
questioning this one, but that then he said he's going to hire people he's worked with before. He's going to hire
Yes.
people he hasn't worked with before. He's going to try to make the best hire for the position that he possibly can. That's what he said. So yes, he said he doesn't hire friends, but then he qualified that statement, right? What he was trying to say, because everybody's, rubbing his face in the dirt for that. I do think it's fair to say that he then did qualify that statement and
Sure.
Clarify it, maybe is a better way to say that, and to say that it doesn't mean he's not going to hire anybody he's ever known or worked with before. That would be stupid for the record. He shouldn't do that, right?
Yeah.
If you hire a bunch of people you don't know, that's a recipe for disaster, right? You got to hire some people you know. So I know you were just poking fun when you said that, but I do think it's important to talk about that for a minute because of all this
Absolutely.
pushback that he's getting for hiring people he's known before. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. There is some wisdom in doing that, right? Let's not get too carried away, right? In taking him literally on that comment, especially when he clarified it, right? So I felt like I had to say that. Go ahead.
Exactly. And I think a more understated point that is extremely important is the fact of continuity of staff, communication, expectations, those things there, I think is a crucial piece of the coaching elements as you assemble and develop that staff. So absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, who's
All
next
right.
up?
Let's go to Byron Bernard Hardman, outside
So
linebackers
you did
coach,
find his real name.
aka Bam Bam.
Bam.
Yes. There you go. So, Bam Bam, born in Jacksonville, Florida in 1981, right? Earned the nickname Bam Bam in his youth because of his aggressive style and rough nature. Shortened to Bam, he attended Edward H. White in Jacksonville, powerhouse there. All-State, Elite, Prep, All-American, selected to play in the Georgia-Florida High School All-Star Game in the Georgia Dome way back in the days. Came to University of Florida, played for Coach Steve Spurrier and Zook from 99 to 02. Mainstay of the Gators defense from 2000 to 2002. Appeared in 12 games for the 2000 team that was ranked number 10 in the AP poll, 11 games in 01, ranked number 3 in the AP poll, 13 games in 02, ranked number 24 in the final coaches poll. Team captain on defense, led the team with 169 tackles, also had 2 forced fumbles and an interception. Following his senior season, received the Gators Fergie Ferguson Award, recognizing the senior football player who displays outstanding leadership, character, coverage, and courage. So, after his playing days, came on at Illinois grad assistant 2008 to 2011. After that, had a stint at Charleston Southern in 2012, outside linebackers coach, special teams coach, got hired on over in Idaho from 2013 to 2015 on the defensive line. They're under Jason Eck, assistant coach. Then in 2015 made his way down to Troy. Served there from 2015 to 24 under Coach Sumrall as assistant head coach, linebackers coach. Then most recently, 2024 and this past year, 25 at Tulane, offensive uh, linebacker coach, outside linebacker coach, and in addition to that, he was the DRGC coach. How do you say DRGC? The defensive run game coordinator for Coach Sumrall. So there's your coaching tree. As far as traits that he brings, again, this is another one that's going to come from Sumrall, the majority of it Sumrall, but he's got a lot of SEC exposure, being back the Gators back in the end of the Spurrier era, starting the Zook era. SEC was very tough in the late 90s, early 2000s. So tough nose, blue collar, hardworking guy, and how he helps Florida. I think it's great to have older players like this come back in this coaching capacity. He knows what it takes to win here. He knows what the swamp is like. He knows the expectations. And then going with that is going to be the continuity of fulfilling everything that Sumrall wants to do. Because I agree with you, B, what you mentioned earlier. Sumrall having his hand in a lot of what the defense is doing, despite Brad White being the DC. So there is Byron Bernard Bam Hardman, your outside linebackers coach.
Yeah, nice rundown there. I like this one better than the last one, but I still have questions here. No SEC coaching experience at all.
There's
Right?
the catch.
Nothing. Not even a gratis, nothing. Right. So I know he knows what it's like to play in the SEC, but it's not the same to play in it as to coach in it. Right. So I question it. At least he knows what it's about because he's played in it. I'll give you that. That is something,
Sure.
but it's not the same. And I got questions here too. It's not near as many as I do about Evan, but it's because I like that he's more experienced overall and has been around it longer and all that. But it's yeah, I got question marks here for sure.
We
So
do.
but we'll see. We'll see. The good news is that he's one of the linebacker coach, and the other linebacker coach is one that I have far fewer questions with, which is next on deck. Greg Gasparato. Isn't that an Eagle song? Gasparado. Oh, okay. Sorry. Close.
No,
Moving right along.
close.
Greg,
As long as he's not a desperado, but yeah, sure.
right. Hey, there it is. All right. Greg will be coming in to coach the inside linebackers as the former defensive coordinator. So you got to like a guy when you leave your defensive coordinator role to come be a position coach. That's a step down, right? Now, granted, step up in school, but step down in position. He must really want to stay with Summerall, right?
Oh, sure.
I mean, that's a heck of a transition, full on, full time DC, right? For Tulane goes to inside linebacker coach. I think that says something. I will say that. That's quite a position hit and title. Right? And he's not even going to be a co-DC from what we've been told anyway. We'll see. The contract's not signed yet. We know we got a co-DC with Gerald Chapman in his signing, but
Yep.
oh no, it's not co-DC. It's assistant head coach or something, right? Or assistant? No, it's not assistant head coach.
No,
I don't
think
remember
so.
what was in the contract. I think it is co-DC, but I don't remember now. There is something else to his title, but I'm gonna have to go back and check that. Apologies. But anyway. But as far as I know, nothing being included with that here. But obviously, the contract's not signed yet, so we'll see. But ultimately, again, DC to a linebacker coach. You want to stay with your guy if you're doing that. So that's pretty impressive. Again, as I discussed with Brad White earlier, that likely meant that he was helping execute Summerall's defense, right, or the vision of the defense. So more important to look at his coaching background from a positional standpoint here than his time at a DC for me, right, in terms of Tulane. So he does have Power 4 coaching experience with both Louisville and Cincinnati at both safety and linebacker positions. Okay, good, right? This is what we want to see. He has worked with the coaches the likes of Scott Satterfield, which if you're not familiar, the current Cincy coach, who has done very well since Luke Fickell left. I would say better than expected. He has also worked with Jeff Brom, which is Louisville's, of course, current coach, who is very good, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So very good coaching tree here in terms of pedigree for Greg, along with, of course, Summerall. So Greg brings some solid experience with him, having coached in some capacity for at least 15 years and having been a positional coach in college football for another 14 years, right, at some level or another. Also, his time as a DC gives him a very solid understanding of how the defense works together at all three levels, right, not just being a positional coach. And I think that is an asset as well. I think the help for UF here should come both in the form of his experience and overall understanding of defenses that I just mentioned. And then, of course, the familiarity with Summerall and his whole system, right? So in this case, because he was a coordinator, you haven't just worked with Jon, you've actually worked with his entire system, his entire operation on the defensive side of the ball. I think that could really help bring some clarity, especially at the linebacker level, right? Understanding some of those keys, those cues, who's usually the mic, an inside linebacker, right? Who usually has the mic literally in their helmet. Miles Graham, inside linebacker. Very, very, very important here. I think this could actually be a crucial hire. I think this one is actually very good, very solid. I'm all for this one. Think this is great to be able to get a guy who's done this before and able to come over and do this. So all for the Greg hire. I think it's a good one, and yeah, we'll see from there. So who's next?
Next up, let's go to the quarterback coach, Joe Craddock.
Yes.
Joe Craddock, folks, another head scratcher for most. But let's run it down real quick. Uh, Spent time at Tulane after spending 2 seasons as Troy's offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, right? Making this coming year his 5th consecutive season with Coach Sumrall. More continuity. He got a start in Division One coaching when he was hired as an offensive player development coach by one Dabo Swinney over at Clemson
Nice.
upon the conclusion of the 2012 football season. Hey, B, who was in the
Oh,
offensive capacity there at Clemson before
oh,
2012 that got
oh.
released?
I think I know that name. I think it might be one Billy Napier.
I think it was. I think it was old Billy Napes. So Craddock given an on-field graduate assistant duties working with quarterbacks, a role that he held until December 2014 when he was named by Chad Morris as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at SMU. At the time of the hiring, Craddock was 29 years old and the youngest offensive coordinator in all of college football.
Oh wow.
Yeah, in December of 17, Craddock was brought on with Morris to become the new offensive coordinator at the University of Arkansas, making him the youngest OC in the SEC.
Very nice.
So
Very
there's
nice.
that. In January of 20, Craddock was announced as tight ends coach at UAB before joining Troy a year later as its sole OC. So check this out from a timeline standpoint. 05 to '08, Middle Tennessee State, quarterback. From '09 to 10, the Parma Panthers of the Italian League, quarterback. There you go, whatever. Um, from 2010 to 2011, Blairwood Christian, okay, offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, and then again in 2012, Clemson. Spent time there, like we mentioned, SMU, Arkansas. So he's had some time and exposure with Dabo Swinney, had some time with Morris. And when he was at Arkansas, Brent Bielema was also there before he left, went from Illinois or wherever else. In 2020, over at UAB, was under the tutelage of Bill Clark. Oddly enough, here's a name, a blast from the past. Jalen Kitna was his QB for half that season.
Hmm.
Hmm. And then, of course, in 22 on at Troy was with Summerall. In 24-25 was at Tulane with Summerall, where under Tulane or at Tulane, right, he had the privilege of coaching Darian Mensah, Jake Retzloff. So there's your coaching
Who
tree.
both looked very good. Both looked very good at Tulane. I have to say that.
Very good, very competent, right? So
Yep.
again, there is a lot of, I guess you would say, cardinal knowledge there when it comes to the continuity. So from a trait standpoint, he's going to be able to do a lot of different things to help encourage whoever our quarterback is going to be Tramel Jones. We got Will Griffin coming in. We'll see who we pick up in the portal. Does Darian Mensah give us a visit? Does Jake Retzloff give us a visit? Regardless of the fact, not a ton of coaching experience from a timeline standpoint, but again, youngest OC in the SEC and the youngest OC in college football for a couple of stints there. He's definitely proved himself coming through the ranks. So overall, not too bad. Joe Craddock is a QB coach, former quarterback. It's going to be very interesting to see what he does and what style he brings to our Gators.
Yeah, and was it him that got the finalist for the Broyles Award, or was it the special teams coach? I can't remember.
I was trying to look up that and I did not see anything on that.
Okay, all right. I'll see if I can find it before we're done here. But one of them did. So no, but like you said, maybe not as a ton of time, but again, being that young and having this, obviously you've got some abilities, and yeah, you look at a couple of these guys he's worked with, really good
Hmm.
there. Yeah, I think a lot of relevant experience here, like that he has SEC experience. I like this hire. I got no problem with this hire as a QB coach. I think it's solid. Again, you got an offensive coordinator stepping down to be a position coach. I the OC and the DC staying with their guy, coming over and taking effectively demotions. I mean, it is what it is, right? Again, and I don't mean to say it like it's a huge negative or something. Again, you're
Sure.
stepping up in program. So I think the hope is you stay with them. And as time goes by and potential opportunities open up, maybe you get those looks, right? I get that thought process and you get to do it at a school with a much bigger platform that maybe then elevates your career and goes forward. I totally get that thought process.
Yep.
And hey, maybe they're going to deserve that shot. I mean, I can see that as being possible for sure. There are definitely potential pieces here that could make that work. So anyway, again, no issues with this one. I think it's solid. I think definitely an upgrade from where we have been with our quarterbacks coach. Pause for on that one. Yeah, so certainly better than where we were previously for a lot of different reasons, and we'll move on from there. All right, this next one, I'm pretty excited about also. Rusty Witt as strength and conditioning. This might be the best hire of the bunch from Tulane that John's bringing over. 20 years of experience in strength and conditioning, 20 plus actually. It's close to 25. Alongside a special forces career, a distinguished, I should say, special forces career in the military. This guy is no joke. He has worked at the strength and conditioning coach at multiple different college programs, D1, D2, some, again, FBS, FCS, whatever. Also did some work with the Olympic team in the late 90s. He has worked with previous coaches, just to name a few, such as Cliff Kingsbury and Mac Brown, go way back when he was working with Mac Brown at Texas. Aside from his experience, Rusty brings a different approach to the position. He has created multiple different, you go back through, it's hard to even find it all, but he's created multiple different training programs and even developed a program for his unit in the military for strength and conditioning, right? Developed his own strength and conditioning program for his special forces unit in the military. That's got to be pretty serious stuff, right? So received high praise from Sumrall here, stating that he was, quote, the best he's ever been around when it comes to strength and conditioning. I mean, I'm not saying John knows everything about that, but again, he's been around the game a long time, right? Been playing it, been coaching it for a long time, and that's pretty high praise. So really cool stuff here. Also notably worked with Pat Mahomes when he was at Texas Tech, for what that's worth. Pretty interesting there. So a lot of feathers in this guy's cap, and obviously what he can potentially bring to Florida, hopefully, is a program that can maintain some better health on the field. Because while we all know that football is a sport where injuries happen, man, have we been plagued by him for 2 straight seasons, to say the least. So that is really what I'm hoping for, that he can bring to Florida, as a program that can keep some guys on the field, man. I have no doubt he's going to build strength in the team. Yeah, but man, can we keep him healthy? That's really the goal here. But yeah, I'm super high on this hire. I think it's an excellent one.
Nice.
Who's up next?
Moving on, let's go to special teams. Jonathan Galante, your special teams coordinator. I see here under the disclaimer, he will not be bringing the 11 personnel mat. He will not be bringing the mat.
We don't get the mat.
So there you go. Anyways, this might be the one here, B. Jonathan earned the Broyles Award nod in 2025 for transforming their unit with star kicker Patrick Durkin and punter Alec Clark after prior roles at Marshall, 22-23, Alabama, 2019-22, and Virginia Tech, 2017-18, there as a grad assistant. So
yes, he was a finalist. I just looked it up. He was a finalist.
There you go. That's your guy. So
he shouldn't need the mat if he's a Broyles finalist award winner. We're finalists for it, not winner. Sorry, but still,
yeah, shouldn't need it. And hopefully we don't have to ring in Houston. We have a problem because, again, that era is over. So there you go. At Tulane, special teams coordinator, like I mentioned, oversaw a unit with the American Conference. Special teams player of the year, Patrick Durkin, and leading punter, Alec Clark. Yes, special teams player of the year and the leading punter. There you go.
I like it.
Special teams coordinator at Marshall, did very well. He was a special teams analyst co-coordinator at Alabama from 2019 to 22. So yes, he still had some time with the Dark Sith Lord, aka Nick Saban, before he moseyed off into the sunset. Grad assistant at Virginia Tech, 17 and 18. So, as I mentioned, nominee for the 2025 Broyles Award. Why he was hired by Florida? He brings proven success in elevating special teams performance and getting the best out of his personnel. His units at Tulane led the AAC in key areas including net punting and field goals made. Not to mention, he was highly recommended by other college coaches. So, Jonathan Galante, special teams. Now, again, Sumrall made the comment in his press conference he's going to have his fingerprints on special teams, but I think with Galante's eye and how the pride that he takes in special teams, we're going to see a very different special teams group in the coming season.
Yeah, so my biggest thought here is I don't think this really matters that much. I mean, obviously, maybe it does with all the issues we had, but
Yeah.
I think in general, typically, it wouldn't matter that much when it comes to kicking and punting and stuff like that. What I want to see here is what kind of change can we make in the kick return game, right? Because
Yes.
that's where it's been lacking. It did get better the last couple of years in terms of punt returns, but I think that had more to do with just field talent than it did anything else. Can we make an impact there, right? Because we've got speed and dynamic players that can get back there and really make a difference. We've got that ability. Can we put them in a position to do something, more often, more frequently with some better, blocking on those units and really set them up to have a chance to succeed, don't tell me that those guys can't take one to the house every now and again if we block better for them. They can. They absolutely have the ability. So that's where I want to see this impact get felt, and I think we got a chance to do that. I mean, it certainly looks like a pretty good hire on paper. Again, I don't know. Maybe it will be, maybe it won't be, but I'm fine with this hire. I think it looks decent. Appears like it has the traits of being a good one. So even though it's another one, coming in from Tulane, I don't have an issue with it. So, all right, moving right along. Last one on the list for now. Obviously, we mentioned the running backs piece. We'll fill that in later as needed. But for now is an internal promotion actually up from grad assistant, Day1 Wilkins to the nickelback coach. No, I'm not talking about the band. We're talking about the star position if you prefer, but this is going to be your slot corner, right? Technically a retained coach, as I mentioned, but promoted from an analyst to now on field to handle the nickel group. So Wilkins does have prior experience at both Kentucky with Brad White and as a grad assistant at Furman for being a grad assistant. He was also a grad assistant or analyst, I guess, with Florida, obviously, on the staff here in the previous year. Only a few years removed from playing safety, he played at Furman as recently as 2022 season. So he's only been doing this for like 3 years, right, as a coach. So very little experience. But I think we'll obviously have lots of leadership around him to help guide him in the role. And obviously we have 2 other pretty good looking secondary coaches to help him with that as well. And also this kind of position also works with the linebacking team as well, a little bit too. So I think you'll have some good coordination there and help him get his kind of feet wet in the position. I do think it's a little weird to have him get promoted to an all-field coach with that little experience, but again, it's the nickel position. So again, I think that's going to work hand in hand with Brandon Harris. So I think you'll kind of see, and maybe even more with the safeties. Maybe it's more with Chris Collins. I don't know, because I think it does usually rotate with safety a little more than it does the corner. So we'll see how that goes. But I do think that's important. That is the end of our list for the breakdown piece of this. We do want to call out, give some honorable mention to Gerald Chapman being retained. Obviously, we already mentioned it. Also, we have the assistant QB coach in AJ Erdley coming over as well. There were a couple others that were made note of, but I don't have the list here. But basically, those are the only on-field role that we did not go through and break down is obviously Chapman, because he was already on staff. We've already broken him down in the past, so we didn't want to take the time to do that since we had such a list to go through here. So obviously, you all know we are very high on Chapman, and just got wind today that LJ McCray is staying. So good stuff there. Also, worldies, we are still talking to Mackay Big Mr. Burrow. He is not officially in the portal yet, obviously, because it doesn't open until January 2nd. So we are trying to work something there from what I'm hearing. So not a done deal yet that he's gone. He may be, but we're still trying there. So we'll see what happens. But big stuff on retaining him. Being McCray, I know he was hurt this year. I know he hasn't produced yet, but that kid's still got all the potential in the world. So big thing to keep him there, and we'll see what happens. So Chapman doing some work on that one. All right. So with that, moving on, your thoughts on how the staff is shaping up overall. Give me big picture. Give me where you're thinking there.
For sure. Before we do, did you also hear about Jaden Robinson?
I did. Robinson, and there was another announcement of some significance as well. There was three that I saw. I'll have to look up the third one, but yes, I did hear Robinson is staying.
Right. I believe the other one was Zandamela was the other one that I saw. Inside offensive lineman.
Which is
right.
huge. He's potentially center. Him and Kearney can play center. That's huge from a depth position. And Zandamela was a 5-star, man. I mean, it's like the 1 5-star we got. So that's huge keep in Jason. So that's big.
Agreed. So yeah, you know what? At the end of the day, as we mentioned, you got some really good hires on here. You got some solid hires on here. We have a lot of Tulane coming over. So I'm sure you've seen the memes or you've heard some of the chatter about, oh, look, it's the Florida Green Wave or it's the Florida Yellow Jackets, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, this coaching staff knows or should know the expectations. They should know what the Gator fan base is going to expect, period.
Yep.
And again, outside of, Sumrall having a 6-year contract, folks, I'm telling you, it's not even going to take 3 years. Okay. It's going to be 2 years. And what are we doing here? Right.
Well, hopefully not, but yes, you're right. If it's not going well, you're damn right.
Yeah. Pretty much, and so anyways, the staff is, and again, I think we've got a lot of head scratchers on there. We are going to hold him to the standard of what he said as far as not hiring friends. He's going to hire the coaches that best fit that position group to make sure that we have the best possible chance of success. So I like a lot of the hires that we've pointed out tonight. Head scratchers on the ones, again, no disrespect to them, but again, we pointed it out. Experience, Power 4 exposure, recruiting, all those things matter. So time will tell, and we get our first taste of that to see what competency looks like in April for the spring game. So fingers crossed, my man.
Yeah. No, I think that's well said, and I think that's exactly right. Right, we do need to make sure that we give opportunities. Right, we're not going to pass judgment in December or January. Right, that's not what we're doing here. We may raise questions, but we're not passing judgment. Right, and I think that's really important to note here. Right, but I also think that it's important to raise questions when the data tells you that you should. Right, we're not just going to give passes and be like, oh, it'll be okay, when there's data that sits there and looks you in the face and says, I don't know about that, right? Now, again, we'll see what that data proves out and what it shows when it actually gets on the field. But when there's stuff that looks you right in the mouth and says, hey, you should probably say something about this, we're going to say something about this, right? Mm-hmm. Just like we would for anything else. But at the same time, that doesn't mean we also know anything. We don't know anything right now. Either way, right? The stuff that looks great may not be great. You mentioned Charlie Weiss, train wreck, right? We thought that was going to be helpful. It wasn't helpful, right? So, things do not always go as planned either way, right? So some of these guys may not pan out to be what we think they look like right now. Some of these guys may pan out to be way better than what they look like right now, right? We just don't know. So it's just going to have to be a wait and see. That's just the way it is, and that's okay, right? But what we're doing right now is just giving the best information we can, or the best analysis we can with the information available, right? And that's all we can do. So for the time being, I think my overall thought is I'm pretty good here. I think for the most part, I like the majority of these hires. I really like a couple of these hires. And I think I'm pretty happy so far. I think overall, from a coaching staff assembly, I think you got 2 borderline home runs here. I think you got several very solid hires, and you got a few
Hmm.
question marks. That's not the end of the world. That's not the end of the
No.
world. That's much better. That's much better than where we were the last time, where I thought Corey Raymond was a home run and I was wrong, right? And then I thought, God, what was that wide receiver coach the first year that he brought in? There was also a good recruiter, got him from USC. Oh, that name's going to escape me.
Mm.
Before he brought Billy G back, I'll think of it sooner or later. Um, but I thought that one was pretty strong too. But other than that, I didn't basically like anybody he brought in on the staff because it was all Louisiana, right? Um, I did not care for basically anybody, right? Other than Sale, who came from the NFL. But other than that, I was like, man, this isn't a whole lot going on here at all, right? And so this is a huge upgrade from that, is what I would say, right? At least on paper. Again, but we'll see what it looks like. We'll see what happens. So with that, I think we're going to wrap this thing up. Our next pod will be after the holidays. We're going to go Tuesday, January 5th, so just over 2 weeks from today. And we are going to do the breakdown. Well, not, I shouldn't say breakdown. We will do an update on the status of the portal, where things stand, who has decided to officially leave, right? Because again, we talked about guys that have said they're going. Will they actually go, right? Will they actually enter it when it opens on the 2nd? We'll get a full track of who all has officially entered and is departing for sure, and see what that looks like, kind of evaluate our takes on, kind of how much that does or doesn't hurt. And then we will look at anybody we have either acquired officially or looking very strong to do so. We're going to have to be careful with that one because obviously things can change there. But if we've got any really solid takes on who's coming, we'll potentially present those as well. But yeah, other than that, I think that's going to be what the next one goes to. Obviously, we'll give the full update of who comes in and is here when we do our full signing recap in February. But ultimately, that's scheduled for the next pod, is talk about player retention and all that good stuff. So with that, any closing thoughts here?
Closing thoughts are the coaching carousel. Well, the new coaching staff established, definitely not as large and grand as the previous coaching staff. So,
Well, not yet.
not yet. That's true. Although I will say, given details of Sumrall's contract, and just to reboot that real quick, 6-year contract, 44.7 million, 7.45 million annually. But the sub clause within there, he was given a $16.3 million staff budget. So
Yeah.
very interesting to see how that comes into the fold. But I promise you, there's more than likely not going to be future pictures, team pictures with staff and coaches outnumbering players. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I would tend to agree.
So, either way, great pod, great breaking out. We learned a lot of stuff about the new coaches. And so, looking forward to see their work on the field. And of course, we'll get to see it as soon as this April coming up, which again, year's almost over. April will be here before you know it for the orange and blue. So, having that been said, wherever you are, whenever you may be listening, thank you for taking the time, and we will see you around, Gator Nation.